And so we want to welcome you out. We were lining a light on people tonight, probably because we're used to getting out of this. And there are a few other little distractions in the world out there today. And so that may have something to do with it. But we want to welcome you back out to our consultant trainings. And we got an exciting year lined up. Today we're going to talk about using some of our family search tools, one of them being the wiki. And so it's a good one, I think, to start the year off. Um, Hopefully this will be a better year than last year, even though it's starting out to be kind of a wild year. Anyway, as far as we're concerned, we're going to try to provide you with trainings that will hopefully benefit you, and then in turn, hopefully help you benefit the patrons that you work with in finding their ancestors. It says our primary goal really is to assist you in finding ways to find all those missing ancestors and identifying them in ways that are appropriate for temple work. And so we aren't going to do just the simple stuff. We're going to try to take you in and show you extra things that you can do. And I think one of the great hidden secrets is our topic this month, which is the wiki. And as I wrote this, I thought about it and I thought, well, it's kind of ironic because originally family history was kind of looked down upon because it was really so difficult. And if you had started, 62 years ago, like I did, yeah, it was. It was absolutely difficult. But in the meantime, over those years now, FamilySearch and their many partners and others have really turned out a wealth of resources that we have sitting at our fingertips, and they really aren't hard to access. And then things become even easier when it comes as far as temple work, when the church releases things like Ordinances Ready, and our members go from saying, oh, family history is just too hard to do, to I don't need to do family history because I can get everything I need off of Ordinances Ready. And so it's kind of ironic that we've kind of done a 180-degree turn, and we're now headed off in the opposite direction with kind of the same basic idea. And so, we put that out there. The church is providing hints, millions and millions of hints for our people in tree. And that's wonderful. It's a big help. But then again, it becomes kind of a detriment in a sense, in that some people feel that the only thing they have to look for are the hints and not worry about anything else, that's going to answer all our questions. And there's still these people sitting out there that haven't gotten identified because there's no hints out there to bring them into tree. And so with all that going on, what we're trying to do tonight in short, sweet, is try to expand your horizons with another tool that can help you in really finding some people that aren't there, or in general, just help you be a better researcher or help you help others, especially when they talk about wanting to do research in an area you're not familiar with. Okay, another way to look at this is to kind of think of our ancestors being the plants that grow in the soil.
No sound.
From me?
I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. I was afraid I had accidentally hit the little button on the cord on my headset. Okay, so think of our ancestors as the plants that grow on the soil. And there's easy stuff, the hints that the church provides. And that's good. That's kind of just barely scratching the surface. Dig down a little deeper and you'll come to the Research Wiki. And it will help provide you with more information on your ancestors to help them grow even better. And we can go deeper than that and possibly talk about guided research one of these months, which is yet another feature that FamilySearch is providing, or the digitized records that don't have any indexes with them that we need to be able to identify. What's the matter? I see a hand up. Ernest?
I don't think he can hear you, but I'm not sure why.
That's interesting. Okay. Well, I wish I could help him. Check, there is an audio check if you go down. Of course, if he can't hear me, why am I telling him that? Try sending him a note in the chat and hopefully he'll see it.
Okay, I'll send him a note.
Yeah, that he needs to go check the audio check.
Brother Hardy, he's Ernest. So, well, that doesn't help us much, but that's who that is.
Okay. Well, why the Research Wiki? The biggest hurdle for us as consultants is to overcome the fear of not knowing how to help a patron. I don't think there's one of us, I don't care if it's me or any others of you who have been doing this for decades, but it's always been the fear that a patron's going to walk in and want to have help in an area you have no clue about. And FamilySearch knew that.
Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by #.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop for a second here and mute people. Sorry about that. Okay, we're back to muted again. One of the biggest hurdles is this not knowing how to help people, and FamilySearch knew that. And so they wanted to come up with something that would help us know how to research anywhere, because there really is nothing out there that addresses this for family history. Now there's the Wikipedia, which is out there in place of regular encyclopedias, but the church decided they'd take that idea and create a wiki for researching, so that if you have any question about researching, you can come to the wiki and get the answer, hopefully. And so this is what they developed. And I can't get my computer to advance. Give me a moment. There we go. And so they've provided a way for us to easily identify the kinds of records that are available in just about any place in the world, along with other things. And so the key to research is knowing, for whatever the question is, what kind of record will answer your question? And is there actually a record available that can answer this question? And so this is what the wiki is trying to provide for us. Now, one thing I did not build into this is you do need to realize the wiki is not where you go to find your ancestor. The wiki is where you go to learn where the records are that identify your ancestor, or where to find information about how to find your ancestor. Okay. So this is what the wiki is designed to do. It should show you, it should be your go-to place. And I use it a lot. I've learned that it is a great help. And then in working with patrons, it's an excellent place to go to provide something for them to look at and study and remember where to go and find the things they're looking for. Okay, so where can we find the wiki? We go to FamilySearch, to the home page, and if you click on search, it's the last thing in the drop down. And so all you have to do is click on it. And this is the top part of the landing page. And it's gone through some mutations over the years. And this is the most current one. And it's interesting that there's 4 ways or three ways on this screen, or four actually, to go find a location to look at, to study. If you need to locate, say, records in New York, there's four ways to get there. One of the ways is just to use the box that's in the upper right-hand corner. You type New York in there. You could also do the same thing with the box right in the middle. That's the main search box. But that one in the upper right-hand corner does exactly the same thing. If you don't want to do the type-in method, you want to have a little more fun exploring, you can click on whatever continent you're interested in, such as in North America, and then click on, say, the United States, and then in the United States, click on New York, and you'll be on New York that way. So you can do it without actually typing. Okay, so what are we searching for again? Various things we can search for. Mainly, we're probably going to search a locality because we're trying to find records that answer a question that we have about an ancestor. Understand that the larger jurisdictions like countries and states will have more records showing in the wiki as opposed to counties, towns, and things like that. That makes sense because the larger jurisdictions tend to have more records. But it is a nature of the beast that probably going down to the town level will be your least effective search place. Now, it doesn't mean you won't find what you need there, but you might be better off at the county or the state level or even the country level doing your searches in the wiki. Okay, so like to find a birth record on Maine, the first thing to do would be to search for Maine in one of those search boxes. And then when you get to the Maine page, look for Maine birth records. And we'll walk you through how you do that. You can also search, though, by topics or subjects if you're interested in something else. I just threw some examples like Creek Indians or French and Indian War, immigration records, DNA, adoption. There's all kinds of topics that are also included in the wiki that aren't necessarily a location-specific topic. But you can go to these topics and they will also provide you with ways to find information and records and probably direct you back to some of the location pages. Overall, there's about 93,000 articles in the wiki. And that number is growing all the time because this is a product that's made by you and me. It's made by the people that use it. And you can, if you want to sign in and join, you can create articles for yourself. And not for yourself, but by yourself for others, because they use volunteers to write these articles. So if you were interested in something like that, and you come to a locality where you know a lot, and they aren't covering the topic very well, feel free to volunteer to write an article for it. And if you make mistakes or anything like that, I'm sure they'll let you know. Because as a wiki goes, people are on top of just about any changes that are made to it. But this number grows all the time. I remember a couple of years ago when I did this, there were only like 48,000 records or articles. And now there's over 93,000. Okay, so when you're going to a locality page, most of the pages, they've been standardized, will look something like this, at least at the country or state level. You should get pages that look something like this, and they all have some of the same parts to it. The very, very top is just introduction to the place, which in this case is Mexico and genealogy. There's a little country information, who borders it. It was formerly a colony of Spain, official language Spanish. And then the stuff we want. Most of these will all have a getting started with that place. And so that's one area, and we're going to go over these in more detail. There's a getting started area on that page. Right next to it, there'll be some research tools that you can use that go with that locality. These are all locality specific links. Over on the right-hand side under the topics, you're going to find record types where you can go and look at specific kinds of records, and it will tell you for that locality what they have or what they know about those kind of records. There's also a box that we all will learn to love, and that's the online genealogy records box. That'll take you to online records. And then another one that's my favorite, because I serve a mission in this area, Ask the Community. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Probably one of the hidden features of FamilySearch that almost nobody knows about. And then most of these pages, we won't cover it anymore. They'll probably have a clickable map or a list, a clickable list of the next level down. Like this is a country, so this will be the states of Mexico, clickable list. If it was a state, it might have the townships or cities or whatever for that area. And so you can go click on those to go down another level down to a specific locality within that country by using the map. So let's look at some of these things. Just kind of remember, next 5 slides or so are coming from this part of a home page for a locality. Getting started is exactly what it's for. Every locality has had written specifically for it how to get started in that area for someone who's unfamiliar with research there. And many of them will have some how-tos, like you see on the Virginia one, how to find birth records, how to find marriage records, how to find death records. Not all localities go that way, sometimes because they don't have much in that area, but a lot of them do. But they will give you all kinds of things, like there's step-by-step Virginia research from 1880 on, or there's one thing there that's not actually a hot link, is an article from the National Genealogical Society Quarterly on research in Virginia. It was written back in 1994. So they're trying to provide you with everything they can think of. What's cool about this is anything in blue is a hot link. There's a whole page or pages that go with every one of those links. The France one I thought was quite interesting because they have a link for some French research guide. Then there's 8 5-minute short lessons that are provided, a video series. There's 2 classes on beginning French research. There's a BYU independent study online course on French research that's free. They provide new links for all these things. And there's also some recorded classes on finding your French ancestors with specific focuses, along with town origins, step-by-step guide to online department archives, because the archives of France have just become online. And so every one of these will be different, but they're geared to that location. And this is where you want to start, especially if you don't know anything about that location or the person you're helping doesn't know anything, because they will walk you through the getting started. Okay, the research guides area, where they put some things that are general research helps. You'll find gazetteers or list of libraries. In foreign lands, you'll find like handwriting documents, how to read certain handwriting, or word lists like Mexico, Spanish genealogical word lists, Norway, dialectic word list, Latin word list, or in their case, the feast days, because so many of their records come from their church records and they mention feast days, or a Latin date converter. So this is where you find some of those general things that are necessary a lot of times to help you in research when somebody's trying to locate where their family is or read the records that are there. Now there's this topic list, and there's several things on there. They have a section for beginning research, which takes you over to the left side of the same page. Then there's the record types. So like here, this is Pennsylvania. So when it says adoption, what it means is there's an article about adoption that pertains to Pennsylvania. And we'll explain to you how you can find adoption records in Pennsylvania and probably what the law explains. I had to do this with a patron because she wanted some adoption records from Utah. And we found out that as long as it's 100 years, they are open. All the old adoptions that are over 100 years old are open in Utah. And that was in the wiki. That's where I was able to find that answer. So you have information about all kinds of different kinds of records and things that will help you in your research, and it's all geared to that locality. Okay, then there's the background and cultural things. Pennsylvania background has like gazetteers and histories and maps and migration records and bibliographies, and the cultural things are like African Americans, indigenous peoples, colonial groups, Swedish Americans, different cultural groups that live or lived in Pennsylvania. And then the local research resources will lead you to lists of archives and libraries, societies, and even the family history centers in those areas. So they've tried to provide you with all kinds of different backgrounds. Okay, the online records. This, I think, is phenomenal. FamilySearch, of course, you know, is free. And in fact, we're probably the repository where most of the people in these other websites get most of their records from, ultimately. But the point is, we want you to know where you can find records. And we don't care if it's at FamilySearch or anywhere else. We've tried to develop a list that is not pushing anybody's product. They were going to put up where records are found, regardless of where they're found. And so when you click on that box, what you're going to get is a big list. And I'm showing you just a teeny portion of the Pennsylvania online lists. One thing you need to notice is if the site that we're directing you to is a pay site, there'll be a dollar symbol there. Now, for most of us, that doesn't matter because a vast majority of the dollar symbols are for sites that we as members have free access. Occasionally, there'll be other things like Scotland's People and things like that there's no way to get around it. You're going to have to pay if you want to see that. One lesson I've learned from this, if nothing else, I just cut these off arbitrarily so I could fit the screen. But if you look under the first column where it says births, where I cut it off was after 7 different sets of birth records that you could go looking in to try to find a birth in Pennsylvania. Now, if I learned anything from working in the wiki, it's that there are multiple sites that may appear to have the same records. Excuse me. But in fact, even if they do, they're indexed by different people. The different companies index different things on the record. And sometimes they haven't done certain ones where the other guy has, and vice versa. And so you want to have a chance to look at every possible place where your record might be found. Instead of going to one set of records and you don't find the birth you want, you don't just say, oh, okay, there's no record. No, you go through the rest of them that are appropriate for the time period and locality that you need and find them, because you'll be surprised how often you won't find it in one set, but you will find it in another. And so this is a good example. Land records, there's like 8 or 10 of them there, and I cut it off. And there's even more. It's just that this list would go all the way to the floor if I could run it straight down. But obviously we can't. Okay, this is just a small portion of them. But every locality we've done this for. Of course, some places there's a lot and some there's not many, but they've tried to locate every single thing online that can help you. And you can always add to it if you find something new that they haven't put up. Okay, asking the community. I got to put on my missionary hat because I am a missionary and I work in this department. And FamilySearch has tried, one of the big problems, let's put it this way, one of the big problems FamilySearch has had forever was the fact that they need to answer a lot of questions for people. And they used to hire, no offense, ladies, little old ladies that would run around in the library and answer mail that would be sent in. When people would mail a letter in and say, help me with this. And they had these little ladies that would run around, and some older gentlemen too, and they would try to find the answers. It was very inefficient, slow, and maybe sometimes not very good in the way of getting answers. And so they've tried to branch out and find other ways to help. And social media is what they've done. They've gone into 2 social media platforms. One is found right in FamilySearch called the Community. If you go to the help icon up in the corner, the question mark at the upper right, and click on that, you'll see Community listed down there. And Community is a site right on FamilySearch where FamilySearch has set up groups for regions of the world, countries and other places in the world where you can go and have ask questions and get them answered by the community. This really works. They also started, I actually work in the Facebook part. In the Facebook, they set up a bunch of research groups where people could go and ask questions again on researching and have the community help answer them. These sites answer and help answer thousands and thousands and thousands of questions a year for people. I'll give you a couple of just short examples. This last week I was looking, we have a group in Canada, and a lady wrote in and she wanted some help finding the death record of a relative. And so within 24 hours, the group had found her person's death record for her, helped her locate the death record, and it mentioned a burial plot and stuff like that. And she was real happy. Then the next morning, suddenly there in the thread for this question was a picture of the gentleman's tombstone. One of the community people, without even being asked, decided since she lived in the town where the guy was buried, she'd go over and take his tombstone picture and posted it for this lady. And she was just so thrilled. The other example is like for translating documents. We do a lot of that where people will find records that need translating, and they'll post an image, and oftentimes within just a couple of minutes, people will write back the answer for what's being said on that document. And so we answer thousands of questions that way. So if you ever come to a point where you need some help and you don't know where to turn, try checking out Ask the Community. It takes you to this page. There's 2 columns. Well, there's 3. The first column is the location. The second column is what group in the community covers that locality. You click on the blue link, it takes you to that group. And the third column over is in Facebook. So if you're a Facebooker and you would like to work that way, you just click on the name of the group and it will take you over there and you can ask to join it. And as soon as you're in it, you can ask your questions. A very, very efficient way to get a lot of questions answered. It's helped the productivity of FamilySearch tremendously. You're going to be finding that a lot of your questions that you've been sending into support in the next month or two are going to start being sent instead to the FamilySearch community for answering by the community instead of the missionaries. So just be aware of that. You'll notice that because it'll look different. The whole experience will be different. And that's coming down the line. Okay, so let's do a couple of demos. One is just a demo on how would I find a marriage for Pennsylvania in 1895, let's say. Well, the first thing I do is I go click on the home page and fill in the box with Pennsylvania and select Pennsylvania, United States genealogy. So I want that general page. And then on that page, I'll click under Getting Started on how to find a marriage record. Okay, that's not hard. It takes me to a page like this, where it gives me a little background up at the top, which is sometimes interesting to look at. Pennsylvania counties have continuously recorded marriages since 1885. So that means they started in 1885 in Pennsylvania with the counties recording marriages. And then the interesting thing that I didn't know till I read this, in Pennsylvania, copies of marriage records are not sent to the state. So the original returns are kept at the county level. The state gets an index, and that's all they get. Okay, then below that, for your locality, they're going to create a little chart that looks like this. And it divides time up based on this locality and the topic we're talking about, which is marriages, and saying that before 1852, this was the situation. 1852 to 54, this was the situation. 1855 to 1884, this was the situation. And since 1885, this is the situation. And they're going to go through and explain. They're going to be able to tell you if there's records and what kind of records, how good are they, or if there are no records. Okay, so in this case, what we want to do, since we're looking for 1895, we need to look at this section for 1885 to present. And so this is what comes up. And this is where the value of this wiki really comes into play, because it provides us with a bunch of different links that we can go to find a marriage record in Pennsylvania. They've divided them up. Some of these are just indexes, transcriptions. And some of them are indexes with images. Now you'll notice the one thing that's missing is the image-only collections. They don't even deal with that here. And so we're talking about things you can find where you might be able to find your answer easily, relatively easily. So in this case, there's 6 different collections that you could go to, some with indexes, some without. You can see that some are at FamilySearch. One for marriages 1885 to 1950 at FamilySearch says it's free, but it's incomplete for all counties and years. It does not include Center County, Lycoming, Mifflin, Monroe, Pike, Union, or Lackawanna County prior to 1926. So there's some missing things there. And so you have to beware, and they try to help you know that. But there are 6 different ways to go. Even tells you way over on the right-hand side how many different marriage records are involved. And so this would be the process you would go through. And then at this point, you would start clicking on these different links to see if you could find an answer. Now, If there was no records, like if you wanted something between 1855 and 1894, when you would come to that page, it's going to say, gee, we're sorry, but there's no state records. Now they do say there is a link here, and it takes you over to Find My Past, where supposedly they might have some records showing there. So there is actually a default to another set of records that possibly would have it. But in most cases, there just is not going to be a state record. So they're offering you options: church records, newspapers, military records, obituaries, and so on. Those links take you not just to church records in general, it takes you to church records for Pennsylvania, newspapers for Pennsylvania, cemetery records for Pennsylvania, death records for Pennsylvania, so that you might be able to find a record that would give you an alternate way of getting at least a general date, if not the actual date, for what you're looking for. So that's pretty much how it works. And again, remember, blue links are hot links. They all take you to a page, at least a page of information. Okay, so let's try one actual example here, and we'll be done. So I went looking for something I could use for an example, and I ended up with Herbert. Herbert, my third cousin once removed. Herbert belongs to one of my church ancestral family lines, where his probably great-great-grandmother joined the church, but his great-grandmother didn't. And so he's in a non-member line, and so there's still work being done on him, even though they trace back to an LDS ancestor. And so all we know about Herbert is he's born about 1909 in the state of Washington, and they said he's dead, which probably is pretty likely. He has no hints. So if I'm using hints and that's all I'm using in FamilySearch, I'm out of luck. I'm done. And do I really want Herbert to go to the temple like this? Because he could technically go. Just make it under the 110-year rule. But I wouldn't be very happy. I'd want more. So I went looking under FamilySearch where it says search records. I couldn't find anything that really seemed to work for him. So I said, okay, it's time to go to the wiki. So I'll have to go to the state of Washington, and let's see if we can find a birth record. I'll start with birth. So I went. I'm hoping that that information is accurate, that he was born in Washington around 1909. So this is what they tell me about it. It says there's limited births found in the following databases. That doesn't sound good. If you don't find your ancestor's birth, or if you want a copy of the certificate, contact the state. Okay, that's nice. Okay, so the first thing they say is go to the state archives. All right, so I went over there. I thought, hey, that's cool. That's probably the best place to go. Except I didn't read carefully where it said registers and returns from 30 counties, principally from 1891 to 1907. And then limited records up to 1938. So I went looking and I found nothing. King County, where he supposedly would have been born, doesn't have anything after 1907. So I'm out of luck with first try. So second try says go to Ancestry. So I said, okay. So I clicked on it. Now, let's talk about searching. Less is best. Repeat after me. Less is best. You've got to learn that when you're filling out search forms. In most cases, the biggest problem we have in finding somebody is by putting too much stuff in, and then it muddies the waters unless you get an absolute match. Because in most algorithms, mathematical algorithms for a match, If you put in the wrong information, that counts against you. Now, another thing I've learned, early birth records, and I consider 1909 early birth records. Most kids were being born at home. So most of these records are generated by doctors. The doctor didn't hang around to wait for the parents to decide what to call the kid. Oftentimes they left before the name was figured out. My dad, he's on 2 birth registers as Baby Givens, male. That's it. So I've learned from experience, I don't even search for the first name unless it's a real common last name. But because so many of them aren't going to have first names, I don't want to ruin my chances by putting a first name in. So I'm just putting in his first name. I'm disregarding the year, and I'm putting in his father's last name and his mother's last name. And generally, that's about all that's needed to get a good answer. Now, I can try other searches, but this is honestly the search I tried, and this is the result I got. I got 4 hits, and they're all children of my ancestors, even though the father's first name varies in the last one there. And in fact, see, that last one's Herbert. And there's a real switch that I haven't seen before. His birth record has the nickname. He always went by Herbert, but he was born Bert, according to the birth certificate. And I knew him as Herbert L. Now I know his middle name, Lindell. I've got a complete birth date and a county of birth. Now that top record is for his brother John Martin, who was born about 5, 6 years later, I guess. I now know he has 2 middle names, Henry Lewis. We didn't know that. But here's the real kicker. There's 2 unnamed children in between these 2 guys. The family has never had those children in a record. And so I've got an issue right now. Did they live a long time? Were they little babies that died right away? What's going on here? If I hadn't done this search, thanks to the wiki taking me to this search engine, I would have never found these kids probably. Nobody else has ever found them. I'm just, pure luck, dumb luck. I've hit these now. This is really interesting. Children 14, 15, and 16. And there's barely enough time in between, but there is. So these kids were being born bang, bang, bang in a 3-year period there. So I said, let's go look at the transcription. Now, this is Ancestry. What I love about Ancestry is they'll often give you hints on the records. So I want to know if there's a hint for these 2 kids. So I go to one of the transcriptions, the 1915 child. It says it's a female. She was born on that date. And it gives me 2 suggested records, a find a grave for Margaret Juanita Martin and a death record for Margaret Martin. Well, I prefer the death record first because it's official record. Find a grave is a secondary record. I want to know what the real record for her death shows. So what's going on here? And this is what I get. She died at the age of 3. And this is why she never shows up on anything, because she was born and died between the 1910 and the 1920 census. It gives her name. It gives her death date. It doesn't give her birth date, but the birth record gave that. She was born in Falls City, King Washington, where the birth record just said King Washington. And then it gives the parents' names. So I've identified that child. She's inside the 110-year rule, but that's okay. I'll put her record in tree. And if nobody snags it by, 2025, assuming I'm still here, I could go and record it, grab it and do the sealing to parents. If somebody else comes along that's related, and a few of the cousins have joined the church, then fine. Now, what about the other child? The other child was a male. And again, there was a Percy Martin find a grave and a Percy Martin death record. Here's Percy Martin's death record. And this is a sad story. He was born the 9th of September and he died on the 2nd of October. So he's about a week short of a month old. And he was probably premature because these kids were born so close together. He was probably a 6-month, 7-month baby, and something that didn't have much of a chance to live. But again, born in Falls City, which verifies things, and also the parents' names agree. So see, using the wiki, looking for one thing, I ended up finding my answer, including more information on a person in tree, his name, and adding 2 babies to the family. And it really wasn't that hard to do. So I really encourage you to use the wiki. I love it. And the more you use it, I think you'll fall in love with it too. So questions. I'll quit sharing so that I can see what's going on better. Any questions? Or did I put you all to sleep? 29 participants, all of you. Most of you are still here.
Unmute me. Hey, Bob,
Yeah,
can I ask about some of these people here?
yeah. I'll quit recording at this
Okay.
point.
Okay, people, there's a Cheryl, Sherrill. Is that a first name, last name? I need both. Who is Cheryl?